being exposed to stuff is the same way. Your immune system needs work. We need exposure to other humans. We need physical contact. We need bacterial exposure. We need viral exposure, because if you don't get that, you become weak. Your immune system will atrophy the same way that your musculature will atrophy if you don't do anything.
Yeah. My conversation yesterday with Dell was just a what the fuck moment. Like it was the amount of information, and now we have to go through, because he was very, very good, but at the end he goes, I was a little bit more animated today, Scott. So there's some stuff that's going on. Basically, in short, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I grabbed from this is this road that the science community, this censoring feeling and not even just feeling, but the censoring model that we're following as well, it's going to impact us possibly to extinction.
We're already there.
And I mean that in the most sincere ways. And so let me explain this. He says, look, he goes, Scott, there's vaccine-resistant polio reemerging. There's vaccine-resistant measles reemerging. And he's been in the meetings. He said it. He's been in the meetings with the CDC and the FDA where these other, viruses or bugs or bacteria that we've, suppressed through vaccines, saying, oh, if we just knock them out, And he came back and he's like, look, there's no recourse after this. And then how he explained what was going on with COVID and the data that's being suppressed right now with COVID is that the people who are getting the jab are the ones who are more likely to have an adverse event continually, even after they get 6 months, another 6 months, another 6 months, versus the ones who've had COVID naturally. And he did a really nice job too, Clay, where he came back and he talked about Dr. Andrew Kaufman and Dr. Tom Cowan as well, and said, look, I understand their theory. He says, but this virus is real. It's been mutated. It's mutating. And he talked about one specific study that was done where they had in a controlled setting and they applied the same vaccine or approach as far as a defense against it in Europe, one in Europe and one in America, and the same result happened on both ends. And there was no connection between the people. So it was some scary stuff, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and when you really get into it and you understand how, I was just talking to a new guy that we've got that's a customer. He's like, dude, I've taken his grandfather was a Nazi that was brought over here, that was one of the researchers that worked on MK Ultra.
Wow.
And he's like, he said, I grew up around that. I was all for it. But then I realized how dark this stuff was. But he's like, I've worked with 30 people that have had panda eyes and prolapsed anuses because of the satanic rituals and everything that they've been put through in their mind swipes. He's like, people can't comprehend and they can't process what's actually happening. I mean, most people just can't handle it.
This episode is going to change the world. Boom. That's the name of it.
It's like, here's some chaos theory for you.
Here you go.
Digest.
So, yeah. Based on what I just said with my conversation with Dell, what are you finding from your end of the spectrum? I mean, in the nootropic world, what Christina's hearing? Because I'm sure, scientists all talk. She's the scientist. You're married to her.
There's a reason that there's 22 countries that we've got she can tell you there's 22 countries right now with a project in Cyprus and another one in India that they're coming to her going, we need the solution. Because I just had her meet with one of my colleagues that's here in Nashville, that's the top integrative cardiologist in the country, probably in the world. And he met with her initially in my office, and he looked at her, he's like, how the fuck have we never met before? Because we're both in Nashville.
Yeah.
And he sat down with her for breakfast on Sunday, just the two of them. He's like, you're a channeler, right? You're an ET. You're not from here. And he said, you function on 6 dimensions. And he said, because I'm one of them. I know what you are. Most people don't even know what you are. I don't think you understand what you are yet, but that's the reason everyone's coming to you, because you know how to fix all this shit. That's your thing. And that's why clean slate is what clean slate is. Most people, and we're not going to talk about it this way, but most people aren't going to understand it. This shit is the solution to the problem. There's a reason that we launched it a month before all this shit happened, not knowing the timing or anything, but it's a reason it's here.
So you're telling me you knew when the pandemic was going to happen in this country?
She knew 6 months before.
Huh.
She was invited to work in Wuhan on viruses 4 years ago by part of the families from the Gamble family, and a few others. I mean, and that's no bullshit. I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there for a bunch of it. And she was out in California at Foster and Kimberly Gamble's house. And she's like, I've been all over. I've been in palaces. I've never been in a house like this. I mean, because they're Procter and Gamble money.
Yeah. Well, let me stop you real quick. I have to ask this because it's something that's coming up and people are going to be listening to this as well. So look, we're functioning, you and I and a bunch of other people function on a different level. Okay. You know what I mean? If you're watching the video, Clay's putting his hand over his head. But for those who don't understand, all they know right now is that they're supposed to trust the government, trust the words that are out there, mask mandates and the whole 9 yards. In your opinion, how do people get around that? Because it should be getting around, because it's clearly separated between those. Let's just call blue and red. Let me bring up something else. I'm going to go back to that point, I promise. But yesterday, based on how it was this conversation was evolving with Dell, he says, look, there's the true separation between a blue state and a red state. He says there's kind of like he didn't say civil war, but an uprising that's happening as the Civil War happened, but it's not going to be North versus South. It's frankly going to be blue versus red at this point. And it needs to go deeper than that, because we all know that the Republican Party too is as compromised as the Democratic Party. But he did say that the red states are in a better position to flourish because the truth is already out there and people are starting to realize more and more and more, and that businesses in red states will flourish, communities in red states will flourish, that in blue states are going to diminish. And so going back, what are people supposed to do, man? You know what I mean? I mean, I remember.
You remember what they tell you when you're on a plane and they're going through the security check, on the airplane, and they say, in the case of loss of cabin pressure, what's the first thing you do?
You put an oxygen mask on yourself. Right.
On yourself.
Right.
See, because the hard part is some people understand what we're going through is biblical. It's beyond biblical though. But at the end of the day, we are all given, and it depends on, actually, it really doesn't depend on your religious belief. I mean, that gets into a whole conversation about illuminaries and Illuminati and everything else, but we are all given free will.
Sure.
The hard part is, over the last, we'll say 200 years, that free will is what's been attempted to be taken away from you, and because of neurotoxicity. And that's the thing, is people are looking right now so myopically at a jab, right? They're looking at the vaccine going, oh my God, the vaccine, this is the worst thing, or this is bad, we're not going to do this. It's like, you've been fluoridated your entire life. You were loaded with mercury and aluminum from the time you were in the womb. Then you were vaccinated when you were there. You've done all this shit your entire life. You've been polluted from the time you were an egg. And you think now is the problem. This is the issue. People have to understand that this is a tipping point. It's, you talk about Andrew and some of these other guys that have talked about autism and such, even with Del Bigtree, with what he's talked about with, how they're promoting the autism issues in kids. Guys, it's a natural process. It has nothing, it actually has nothing really to do with the vaccinosis concern. We're living all of the stuff that we thought was bad. but it's all playing out in front of us. And if you watch the interview I did with Dr. Don Huber, I mean, Don mentioned the point that you hit on from a glyphosate point, that this just in, we are in the middle of an extinction event. We're living it. We're
Yeah.
3 generations away from being endangered. We're probably 4 away from being all done, because we can't breed. We can't reproduce because males are so toxic. Their sperm count is down over 30% over the last, I think it was 20 years from what Dawn was saying. So that keeps dropping. Women aren't conceiving very well because they're so polluted. So if you can't breed, you no longer exist.
Yeah, you're done.
So that's the big part, is we're just sitting in the middle of it, and people, but it gets back to the key point. You are responsible for yourself.
Well, I want to clarify something real quick, because I know you got hit up the other day on Facebook. You did a nice job at the 2 on the Facebook group about, does Clean Slate take care of, rule out, cure, whatever someone wanted to say about COVID-19. And the answer is no. It does a job. It has a job. But the point is that Clean Slate should not be looked at as a cure. It's not a cure.
Right.
It's a remedy. And you're so toxic before that, we just mentioned, but I want to make sure we break it down, because I know probably that group is going to listen to this talk probably first. You're so toxic up to this point. Put your oxygen mask on, do what you need to do, detoxify, and maybe we'll be actually the saving light that's going to, keep the species going, right?
It really comes down, you can't really talk about it as the chosen ones, but no. Honestly, it is a chosen one, because the people that are going to survive this and be healthy,
right,
choose.
Yeah.
So you
see
are
what
chosen.
happened with Johnson & Johnson today? The news?
Oh.
Huh. The government halted the vaccine from Johnson & Johnson because of the blood clots.
Yeah. I know that was talked about a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And
but here's the thing. So you have Dell, you have RFK Jr. and their platforms, who've, by the way, been completely censored. You can't even bring it up. And yet all of a sudden the US government puts a halt on it. My point, and I'm going to write a post about this later on today, is this no longer can be about clicks, likes, reviews, thumbs up. I mean, if we can't get past this, the facade of, hey, I had 2,000 shares, whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. We need to get this information out there, so people are like, why? Why? It's the greatest question in the world. Why did that get removed? And if that one got removed, what about the other ones?
Well, and it's really a key point of going past the current, right? Because if you focus on what's happening right now, you will be eliminated.
Sure.
Right? And this isn't just a current issue, like we were hitting on. This is something that is multi-generational, and it's intentional, right? So instead of trying to put so much of a focus and hammer on this is current, how do you want to play the game? Do you want to fight? You want to fight a beast of which you have no tools, or do you want to wake up and take care of yourself? And granted, I'm not going to say Clean Slate's the end all be all, but I will tell you it's a freaking foundation to it.
Yeah.
And it's really the core aspect of, you want to fight COVID, you want to fight the next 2 or 3 that are coming behind this, because they're coming. They've already been designed.
I know.
This is the tip of the freaking iceberg. And it's not about the viral concern, because when we're healthy and functioning, are antiviral. We're antibacterial. We're antiparasitic. We're made that way. We're freaking light. We are light. Get down to the quantum level and what our cells look like. And here's the funny part. Do you know what companies are using to kill off the virus? Light. Hello?
Isn't that amazing? And then remember back when Trump did that? He goes, "Well, like some I don't know,
UV,
some UV light." Right?
Yeah, it's funny.
And then they twisted it, saying that it was he was talking about, vaporized peroxide or chlorine that you can inhale in it, but that's how they covered it up. And I was like, yeah, he said it right there. He knew.
I mean, hypochlorous acid. I mean, I've got the best thing in the world for cleaning this stuff up, sitting 7-8 feet from me right now with Pure, because it's actually, silver dihydrogen citrate. It's silver ions bathed in citrate that actually can sit on a countertop and kill this and everything for a week.
But what would happen to the U.S. economy if everyone said, something, screw it, I'm not wearing this mask, if those people didn't need to wear it, if they weren't at the high risk population?
It's interesting because it brings up an aspect of political commentary and dominion, right? Of what would happen if the population rose up against tyranny.
That's right.
What happens at that point? They made a movie about it.
Yeah, it's called Ants.
I mean, they made a couple of them. It's like, well, these are circumstances that you're going to see the republic, fight back against the population.
Right.
And you go, there was the Hunger Games, and
yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one, by the way.
It turned out quite interesting in the end. And so, but the big thing is, before that can happen, people have to wake up. I mean, we talk about being
that's a hard statement to digest, though, man. I'm telling you, I'm not going to point out what family members, but I've had family members, and I bring up some of these things, and they look like it's like,
because you can't get through to this if you have a calcified pineal gland. If your neurological system and your brain doesn't even function properly because you're loaded with heavy metals, and let's get down to it with the vaccine issue. Great. What's the carrier mechanism that they're using? And most of them, it's aluminum. They have some other stuff in the other one. In a couple of the other vaccines that they're using as delivery mechanisms. So they cross the blood-brain barrier and they attach to cells and create those spike proteins. But the bigger issue is, great, the water you've been drinking, and maybe not the water you've been drinking, because maybe you have filtered water.
Sure.
The water you've been bathing in is loaded with fluoride and other stuff, has been for years.
And what does the skin do?
Yeah, exactly. The air you're breathing. See, and this is the funny part with masks. Masks are a bunch of shit. But if you really wanted to wear a mask, you'd wear a mask to deal with what's been put in the air. I mean, I was watching an interview yesterday about someone asking the question about, hey, what's in the rainwater with the amount of aluminum and barium and other things that are in the rainwater now because of the amount of geoengineering that's gone on. And people that think that geoengineering is not legit, sorry, they've been spraying. And the crazy part is, it's not the government that's been doing it. It's the chemical industry that started doing it because they knew that dumping chemicals into the water supply was bad. So they're like, well, if we aerosol it, then it'll spread out and disperse. It won't be as bad over time. We can just continually do that. It's like condensation process goes from groundwater to air and back down. I mean, I remember that from biology in like 6th grade. And you go, wait a minute, the Lion King said the circle of life was legit, and it's all there. No matter where you want to poison it, it all comes back into us.
Right.
So you can't get away from this stuff. You don't have means of sheltering yourself to say, okay, I'm going to live in a bubble. Great. You're going to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
But how old are you? Because you've been exposed ever since you were conceived. So you've got to get the stuff out. So, our conversation or my conversation with people really does. It's a matter of getting through to somebody, very, very simply, to get them to understand that, look, you're concerned about now, or these are your concerns. Great. Let's look at the broader issue. Can you agree that you have pollutants in your body? From some point they go, yeah, great. Then we have to get those out. That's why we do this. And what is that process? Well, nature provides the means to take care of us. Always has, always will. And what do you do when you perfect that process to unlock what nature's created? And the interesting part, like we were hitting on, that we launched Root a month before all of this chaos starts. And Clean Slate, honestly, is a level of science that's never been seen before in the clinoptilolite zeolite space. I mean, it is really that advanced.
Can I play something for you real quick?
Talk to me.
This is Mama Bear, by the way. This is something. When I asked her a question about the detox triangle, we mentioned before, with your permission, if you don't want it, we'll take it out. But here it is. All right. So give me a second to pull it up. And I've shared this with 3 people in my family just so they knew what was going on. You ready?
Yep.
Hold on.
Another podcast with her, and talking. I really like her. I just don't care for. I don't really care for the governor of New York. I don't know him personally. Some of the stuff he's done is not my favorite stuff that he's done. But I did the collaboration with her, and I will tell you this about Root. Root is in 60 countries. They launched the week of COVID. Same week they launched right then, and they doubled their numbers every month. But they have predominantly a European following, and they're just huge over in Europe. So
I'm going to stop there for a second. What's going to happen and what you're going to hear next, folks, is not about Root. Okay.
They are doing very, very well, and they have really great products. Well, I say that's arrogant. I worked on the products, but I think the company has done fairly well. But because of that company, I actually, Scott, have been commissioned to work on a natural vaccine with the World Health Organization. I'm trying to finalize the contracts. Don't say that on your show until I finalized it. Sure. But I will not use an active virus when I do it. And they need something to reverse the side effects that happen with the vaccine. So they want me to work on that. We're in negotiations. We should finalize that this week as well.
So I had to pull that out because we're all at a crossroads and we have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
People need to know, man. They need to know that.
The natural vaccine aspect is always the fun part because it gets back to my key point. What is antiviral?
Oh, I'm going to leave that to you. Us.
We are.
Our body was designed to repel anything, especially, so remember the other day when I was asking you about the frequency of crepilolite?
Yeah.
I was like, what's the frequency of that? Because, because on another level, that could also be, and when we talk about vibrating and energy, that's where I was going with that.
This is the key. This is to give you some of the underlying secrets of what makes this stuff so special, right? Is the actual frequency, I'm not sure, because it's a crystal, right? It's okay, God's creation. I mean, basically, it was volcanic eruptions, the ash from volcanoes mixing in different lakes and seas that created these crystals and clays. So this zeolite class, so bentonite. Clino is the strongest, most unique, most valuable of the class. You can go back to the Romans. They used it. Just discovered last year in October it was published in October, that the Mayans were doing the same thing like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
They were using the same crystal for water purification. What makes Clean Slate so special is we're taking that crystal, but what hadn't been studied and hadn't been discussed up until the last couple of years, because the researchers just really published it, was the bioavailable silica. Right? The orthosilicic acid that can be created or released from clinoptilolite. And because clinoptilolite is a sodium aluminosilicate structure, right? And our process is multi-step and multifold. And I'll give you the 2 key parts of it. 3 parts. 1 is how we fracture this honey, break it into fragments. In so doing, we release and make available massive amounts of bioavailable silica. Well, what is bioavailable silica? It's the primary building block for body function. It's the one thing we don't get enough of, right? People want collagen because there's a big push for collagen. Guess what? You produce it if you have enough silica and a few amino acids that you get in your diet. So you want amazing hair, amazing skin. You want your nails to be good. You want your joints to be good. You want your organs, your connective tissue to be functional. It's all bioavailable silica, but you still have the cages from the natural structure. And then we clean out the cage structure to remove any of the heavy metals and other toxins that are stored in this cage system for the last couple 100 million years. Mm-hmm. And then we polarize it. After we add a bunch of ascorbic acid, really good ascorbic acid, and we load it with a bunch of trace minerals, sea salt, so pure sea salt. So you take what nature's put here in all aspects. Linus Pauling said vitamin C is the most important thing we need. Okay, got that. Well, trace minerals, one of the other most important things we need. Where do they come from? Good seas. So you've got the best natural source of trace minerals. And then you've got nature's most powerful binder and detoxifier and provider of our most foundational component, being bioavailable silica, to go along with water, which we're 70% of. So you take that, you combine it. Here's what happens. The vitamin C and the trace minerals either bind to or get absorbed into the cages. So they become one. They become really a superstructure, this amazing super molecule. Then what we do is we polarize it. So you take that natural energy frequency of all of those that combine, and then we supercharge it.
We need to know that frequency.
Yeah, that'll be some interesting testing.
I'm determined.
Yeah, that's some of the interesting components of looking at that. But it's the difference of understanding biotech, like Christina does, right? Because I mean, she's one of I think there were 20 people in the program, and Harvard's no longer doing their nanotechnology bioscience engineering program because they don't have enough people that can qualify for it.
Wow.
There's not enough minds that can actually get through the program, because in that program, you actually have to create a new molecule or a new superstructure.
Well, I want to jump to something real quick because I don't want to kill Clean Slate too much in that sense of promoting it, because I don't want people to get too antsy. But I want to go back to that recording real quick. So, is that true? Leave it
absolutely there. Yeah, it's all true. And what's interesting, you want to know what the foundation is for those natural vaccines?
Yeah. Oh, no shit. What you just spoke about. But don't you have to be careful about saying what's the quote unquote cure? I mean, we're not supposed to do that.
See, that's the thing, is it's not a cure. That's just it. What if the vaccine isn't about creating immunity? Because we are immunity. What if it's actually about unlocking what's already here? Remove the veil, right? How do you...
So are you telling me that you're working with the World Health Organization and setting up a contract with them with Clean Slate?
I would say not with Clean Slate. And the initial conversations were with that organization, but that organization is probably not the most ideal to be working with, because most people have an idea now of who's funding them and who's behind them.
Yeah.
And
Bill Gates came up a lot yesterday, by the way, with Dell.
Yeah.
Profoundly and significantly. And everyone's going to hear this. By the time this recording comes out, Dell would already been out. So they're going to be well aware of this conversation.
Wait a minute.
Right. So what I have to be cognizant of now is to make sure that we edit the items which he clearly identified that got him removed and censored from social under their quote unquote guidelines.
Well, and this gets back to the foundational components of what Root is actually based upon, right? Is it's restructuring commerce and influence, because these systems, these parties have power because they consume all the money, right?
Yeah.
They have their sources of funds from all of us, right? Because our consumption is controlled by the media. People people that are more aware are like, these are the problems with the media. This is the problem with the media. This is the problem with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Most of your consumption is going through them, though.
Right.
They're like, oh, we hate Amazon. Great. Most of your consumption is going through them. Oh, they're evil. They do this and that. Great. You're funding them.
Yeah.
So
we're funding all of it. I mean, I've talked about that in just the wearable market alone. That's like not even, that's a ripple in the sea, not even the tip of the iceberg.
Well, and you look at the wearable market, and it's great to have measurables, right? And we talked about this.
Yeah.
The interview come out about, I forgot his name, of doing.
Oh, with Dr. Rao.
Yeah.
Yeah. With HRV. Well, actually,
yeah.
with Justin, who we just had on with HRV measurement. Yeah.
Measuring HRV and what the benefits and what the importance is of HRV. And I sit here and laugh because I'm like, I can change it in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We can see a complete shift, not even just from a heart rate variability, but a spiritual shift. I mean, you can't do that. You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Well, here's my difficulty with relying on tech, and the more aware I'm becoming, the less reliant on tech I am holding on to. It's like
pyramids were built without a lot of tech. Granted, they might have had a little assistance, but I mean, it's funny for people that want to be techie, but the people that are also techie are like, 5G is bad. It's like, no, 5G is not bad, but the big thing is it's the antennas, right? And it's our reliance on technology creates our reliance on the ones who create it, right? And you get going down the path of AI, and the symbolism that's been put in front of us for decades, and people go red pill, blue pill. Is like, you understand that we're walking down that path and you're being led into it going, hey, this is great. My phone can do everything for me, and I can wear this and it tells me what my heart rate is and it shows what my stress levels are. And this just in, someone's tracking and measuring all of that.
I
know. They know every trigger point for you. They know when you're strongest. They know when you're weakest. They know what knocks you off balance. They know how to manipulate every aspect of your life because you give them all the data. And where is the value in today's world? The value is not in physical products. The value is only in data.
Yeah.
Because with that, you can create models to control whatever you want. And this gets into the other part of the frequency versus antenna conversation that I have with people. So many people are concerned about all the frequencies, the EMFs, the 5G, 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi, whatever. Those aren't the issue. The fact that you resonate with all those because of the heavy metals that are in your system, some of which have been injected, some of which you've inhaled, some of which you've consumed, some of which you got in the womb. All of this stuff programs you to be a receptacle to those frequencies. So then you can be manipulated, and you have no clue.
Let me bring this up. So we just got done recording again. So Manju Agarwal, originally from India, now lives in Canada. He, in short, I'm going to justify him real quick. In short, he is a computer scientist, very, very big on AI. So I was combining the topics of mindset, artificial intelligence, and biohacking to see whether I'll lay it out just from his perspective, from a computational engineer. Did a good job. Super nice guy. He said on his podcast, he goes, Scott, he goes, look, in 10 years, we're not going to be speaking language. He goes, we're just going to be communicating from cell to cell, brain to brain, for those who are just listening to audio. So combine all that to what you just said. I mean, is there validity to all that stuff? I have no clue.
I see it a little bit differently, right? Because you have some parties that are thinking of it from a tech standpoint. The biggest thing is we're made to do it. The problem is the major communication center, being your pineal gland, has been calcified for a long time, so we couldn't. Why are dolphins so much more advanced than we are from a communication standpoint?
So then how is he attributing then that we're not going to be communicating within 10 years, knowing that right now that Root's a newer product to the market, right? Clean slate.
We choose the path. We
Okay.
choose the path. One way is you will be controlled. You will have implants in you, just like these, that they will control.
For everyone who wants to get a real good cue on that, look up Netflix. I'll look up the exact episode. Black Mirror. They had it on, and that was the crazy part, man. People. It's like they're showing us, and that's our entertainment. We're like, oh wow, isn't that like really messed up? Isn't that really cool? It's happening.
I was talking with my son yesterday. He's like, you know what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink and everything. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of the worst case scenario. It's like, oh, Elon wouldn't do that. He's a good guy. I'm like, what? I'm like, it's not about the marketing. It's like, no, you have to understand the mechanism. And we're at this precipice, right? We're at these crossroads. And what Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Right.
That's what my dad taught me. He's like, you know what? If you come to that fork, take the fork, because you never know if you're going to need it. But we're at this crossroads where things are going to get really bad, or we could see, a restoration of society to a level, because what was talked about by many people at the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, is that we're seeing a spiritual shift globally, right? It is an energetic shift. And there was a really unique article that I saw that I was reading, that they were talking about the crystallization of the human body, that we are becoming more resonant, right, with our universe, with everything around us. And I was looking at that, and I'm like, that's really funny. Because
what site was that? Would you mention that to me before? I was like, where'd you find that article?
I'd have to go back. I don't know the exact source because I read so much stuff, but it made me laugh, because we're crystallizing people. That's what this is it's micron and nanotized crystals that are resonating. They're cleaning out the bad stuff, but those frequencies are restructuring what's going on here. And we're seeing that, like you had on the audio of our results in Europe. And you've seen this yourself. Yeah. How is it from a physical mechanism that you can take 1, 2, or 3 drops and get the outcomes that we're seeing? The physical pathway is actually not possible. It's not. Theoretically, you can't even look at it and go, okay, we can see this and this and this go away. We can see these things adapt because of, basically 3 raindrops.
Right.
There's not enough content that you can put in that to create a mechanism that's successful.
So my buddy,
it's not as physical.
My buddy Tom last night, so his order just came in of clean slate and 0 in, and I said, look, I'm glad you got both. Focus on clean slate. And he's like, okay. He goes, so how would you? I said, we talked about eating. We talked about the amount of drops, all that stuff. He goes, well, I'd like to eat something in the morning. I said, look, I stop eating at 6. I don't eat again until at least 10 or 12. But the first thing I do is I put a drop in my mouth before I go to bed, when my stomach is empty, and in my mouth in the morning before my stomach gets full. So it does what it needs to do. And then you start ingesting or whatever you're going to intake. And he goes, what about the 0 in? Because everyone loves 0 in. I mean, everyone knows about the consistent dopamine effects and everything else. And I go, look, great. Start with detoxifying first. I go, imagine this. Imagine you hit the gas pedal and went from 0 to freaking 90 miles per hour. Your car would survive and it'd be okay, but man, it would be all tempered up. You probably loosen something. I go, just ease into it, dude. Just ease into it. I go, so introduce 0 in later in the week. So I'll give you a little schedule to do it. I said, look, I've hacked with it. And I know, I mean, good Lord. I mean, if you put too much of that stuff in, you're going to be like in Zen mode, like we talked about.
It's an experience that people use chemicals for.
Yeah.
Only don't need the chemicals and it gets back to the key point of, you have all of these people that are biohackers, and I won't name names because I think they're all a joke. And they're using, they're like shrooms, psychedelics are the greatest thing because you could get DMT and you can do this and this and this, and you got to add all of these things to get your brain to do this or get your body to do this. And I sit there and laugh at them. I'm like, actually, if you just remove what's inhibiting your body and you feed it a couple things strategically, because what most of these, and even the companies that are selling products like Qualia and such, these nootropics, they're mega dosing, all of these different components. Like, we have 30 ingredients and they're all put in here. So here's the kitchen sink. And if you take it and your body looks at that and goes, what the hell did you just give me? And I can't use all this stuff. I can't assimilate it properly.
Have you seen the full episode with Paul Stamets and Joe Rogan? I watched when it first came out, I watched 30 minutes of it. Didn't go back to it. Then Michelle picked it up and she started watching the whole thing. I went and listened to the whole thing. It is amazing. Utterly amazing. I've been talking about it all week. It was that informative. It was unbelievable. And it was talking about just the measurement of mushrooms and how many there are out there. So who's a skill? Oh, someone from Georgia's calling me, Clay. I'm not answering.
Well, and it goes to the study of cannabis has become so popular, but those that are talking really research, they know that the myco space, the fungus, and is going to be so much bigger. But the crucial part of this is, if you want to biohack, the first thing you have to do is Control-Alt-Delete. You have to reset. You've got to clean out the mess, right? If your computer, I got my second one, my older one is over here because it's 6 years old. It's loaded with data and information, so it's slow. So what do? Well, one, you got to clean it out. You got to kind of restructure it, or you get a new one that has a faster processor and better information, better technology today. Well, can you do that with your body? No, you can't. All you can do is reset it. So you got to clean it out. Once you do that, you'd be amazed at the things that happen. But then if you start to tweak a couple things, because our body doesn't need a lot of what it needs is really good stuff in the right amounts.
Yeah.
Right. Because if we go back to the myco conversation and fungus, what are people talking about psychedelics? Are they talking about, if you eat a pound of mushrooms, it is the greatest experience you've ever had? No, they're like, dude, if you do that, you won't be functional. It's micro dosing.
Right.
It's nano amounts because, we're quantum. We're energy. We don't need a lot of something. And this is where, in my opinion, when I started studying the pet cow effect like 15 years ago, and it's funny because it's a physics theory based on nuclear exposure, but the theory applies to nutrition and wellness. And I don't know, maybe I need to write a paper on this. But
you should. That's a calling.
The pet cow effect talks about that small dose exposure over an extended period of time has a greater impact than a single large dose.
Right.
They thought it was inverse. The same thing goes for wellness. Do you need a lot of something? Do you need 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C, or do you need a couple hundred?
Couple hundred. It's all about the balance. It really comes down to balance. Balance.
And that's just it. Is a matter of how it's balance, but it's quality, and then it's combination of what you can put together. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Me too. I have to go to the bathroom. Give me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
And we're here on our own. It's the private chat time. Is this where we do the healthcare 360 blog that I just get to dump on people and go, if you want a biohack and you want dopamine and serotonin levels like you've never imagined, take a couple. They're upside down. I'll tell you, this stuff is absolutely insane with how it functions. 1, 2, 3, couple capsules. You will function like you've never imagined. But what's important is, like we said, you got to reboot. You got to remove the bad stuff first. You get the heavy metals, you get the glyphosate, you get the fluoride out. Away you go. See, I'm doing my infomercial.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was doing my monologue. I'm like, you know what? I can just talk right now and not be inhibited. All right.
That's hilarious, man. My gosh.
And it's like, you give me a microphone, I might say some things that some people might find insightful and some people might find offensive. Like, that's my gift.
Yeah. We have to get past that, man. We just have to get past it. It's just like, where is just intuition and judgment and discernment and all the above, right?
And it's
politely disagreeing, or however you want to define it.
It's a matter of programming, right? It's the issue that we see of people being fed a well, I can't say it that way. We've been poisoned to the point of not function, right?
Yes.
So people are becoming aware of what the issues are, because, well, not all people, but those people that are actually, becoming a little bit awake. I would figure the majority of people that are listening here, and they're stepping back going, okay, I can draw correlations. I see all this stuff. And we hear that, hey, this has been a plan. This has been going on for a while. And this is what's expected. And, well, guess what?
Yeah.
This is the deal. This is the culmination of everything that we've been talking about. Unlocking every cell.
What's your regimen with Clean Slate?
Everybody's got to start slow because of how strong this stuff is. Start with one or two drops, and then it's a matter of feel, right? Because each one of us is different.
Yes,
each one of us can function and use a little bit. The 10 drops twice a day that's recommended on the bottle, I'm actually, out of all of our customers, we have very few that actually do that because of how strong it is and how the body resonates with it. I'll drink a third of a bottle or a half a bottle at a time. I've done this a lot longer.
Well,
My body
you own that company. A lot of people will probably say financially they may not be able to afford that, but you own the company.
Yeah, I own it, but it's also, and that's why I don't tell people to do that, because I don't think it's completely necessary unless you have some major issues. Like if I had really bad Lyme disease, or if I had cancer, and I can't get cancer, I'll never have cancer. I can't get it. I mean, I'll get sick. Like, I had a sinus infection the last week because of the amount of stress we're under with work and working. So I got a sinus infection. I cleared it in a couple of days.
Yeah.
You'll get sick. This is the key point to the conversation. You might contract the virus. Great. You go work out, right? You go lift weights. You might go for a jog because you want to challenge your body. Being exposed to stuff is the same way. Your immune system needs work. We need exposure to other humans. We need physical contact. We need bacterial exposure. We need viral exposure, because if you don't get that, you become weak. Your immune system will atrophy the same way that your musculature will atrophy if you don't do anything. It's the same process. So it's a matter of, okay, what are you doing for exposure? And for me, my body functions a little bit different now than most because of how long I've done things. Do I recommend it? No, but like, if I had cancer, I wouldn't use 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 drops. I'd use 20 to 50.
So let me bring this up. You and I are both fans of Harry Matadine. He was awesome on the show. You listened to, what did you think of the episode, by the way? Did you like that?
That was great. Harry's phenomenal. And Harry, if you really look at Harry's background, Harry and I were introduced like 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And by a mutual friend, and we did an Instagram live, and he was talking about everything that he's done. When I looked up his history, he's done a lot. He dealt with his demons when he was younger with lots of alcohol, and then he was doing lots of psychedelics. And he's been on this journey, like he talked about, from a free therapy standpoint to get well. I look at that as cribbing, right? Because I grew up in veterinary medicine. that with horses and other animals, if they're nutrient deficient or if they have deficiencies, they'll crib, right? You'll see horses chew on fence posts or chew on buildings because they're trying to get stuff.
That's called piker for humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what we see in humans is that is related to our addiction process, because your brain and central nervous system are wanting to feel better. What are we deficient? Dopamine and serotonin, right? Our body isn't producing what we need for those neurotransmitters. We don't feel good. We don't function good. We are nowhere near optimal. We are nowhere near good as we are just normally right now. So you see people that are doing that, they're cribbing, right? So their brain is telling them, I need to feel good. Make me feel good. Get me something to feel good. But the problem is the toxicity process eliminates all of the thought of the good, right? Because of the negative aspect of heavy metals and the toxins that are causing all of those problems, they shut off your ability to actually search out internally, search out the good stuff. So you go to alcohol, you go to drugs, and why are they selling so much fentanyl right now? You want to get into that game? Why is Xanax being sold on the street? That people are just stamping Xanax pills at home, but it's not Xanax, it's freaking fentanyl. And they know that we are so toxic that people just want to feel good. So they're like, hey, this will make you feel good. Maybe you'll just be a little more numb. You won't feel the pain right now. The pain will go away. Yeah, because what's one of the primary causes of death? Poisoning. What's the other one? Trauma, which is rare. The other one, you choose.
That's a great way of putting it. So look, so this other gentleman, Manoj, I told you he was from India. He's not published yet. He said, Scott, you can buy aged urine at any street corner in India. It's been around forever. My first question was, aged urine, really? And at first, it's an evacuative product of the body. I believed Harry, just because, I mean, he did it. He is alive. So he's, what's from...
Well, look at homeopathy and Ayurveda. How much of it's studied and how much of it is it applied in the United States? And why is it not applied in the United States? Why did homeopathy go away? Oh, because the petroleum industry went to all the medical schools and said, if you keep doing that, we won't give you money.
Right. Because there's no payment system aligned with it, period.
Well, and they made sure that prior to even creating the payment system, they said, no, you're not going to teach this anymore. You're going to teach what we want you to teach. You're going to teach pharmacology.
Oh.
Because it's through petroleum that we make all the pharmaceuticals. And we're going to keep the pipeline going, because not only are we taking the petroleum out of the ground to make gasoline, which we control, but we're also going to make sure that we control that process. So they just keep the cash coming.
James Corbett's going to be on in about a week or so. And we're going to deep dive into the development of the Western medical system as it exists today. He knows a significant amount about that, which is, I find rather interesting too, because he lives in Japan.
Yeah. It's like, you got to get out of the matrix in order to see how bad it is, right? You either get above it or you get outside of it. And then when you do that, you can see, wow, this is pretty wicked. It just really comes back to make the choice. The only one that you're responsible for is yourself. And then once you take care of yourself, you can take care of your family.
Yeah.
And once you take care of your family, then you can take care of your friends. And then your friends can take care of their families, so you can take care of their friends. And that's the entire approach that we've taken with Root, is just make it sharing, because that's what we want to do. We need a sense of community. We need to come together, but we need to change how commerce is done. So instead of taking a philosophy where I could go raise $30 to $50 million, because of what Clean Slate, what Zero In, and what Restore do. And I could take 50 million and go, okay, we're going to take $20 million. Here's our marketing budget. Here's the market segments that we want. Here's how we target those people through social media, because they have all the data. And then we say, hey, I want Joe Rogan, or I want these podcasts. I want to do these interviews. And we go sell the snot out of it, and we keep all the money, but I'm pumping money into the beast. Or do we recognize, okay, we need to make some changes? How do we create change on our own? We've got the solutions, because we got the products, because I've got the smartest woman in healthcare as a wife and as a teammate. and say, okay, if we have that, our approach is to serve and to provide as much benefit to the population as possible. So how about we create a construct that instead of putting money into the beast, we put the money into the parties that actually create all the value, which is people.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
I told my web developer this morning, I said, you understand, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I certainly recognize, Michelle said last night, she said, does Clay know how much that you talk about he and Christina? And I said, I think so. I think so. He listens to all the podcasts.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him this morning and I said, I've been blessed to been aligned with people. And when someone asked me, and this is, you're really going to enjoy this. This is really, really funny because you and I met through Christina. You know how I met Christina? I saw her picture on LinkedIn and I saw her eyes.
Yeah, that's it.
And I go, I need to have that woman on the show. And I, for months, hey, what are you doing? Just a little poke here and there. And that's how we eventually met. And again, been blessed. We're striving and jiving too. And I told him, I said, do you understand the back end movement of what you're helping here? And he was like, he was having a little bit of a tough moment. And he was like, yeah. I said, no, I'm serious. What you are doing is that much bigger than what you think. I go, this is frankly the light side of the force.
Right? Well, and if you go on our YouTube channel right now, you go to the Root Brand YouTube channel and look at the new testimonials that we just posted on there, the experiences. And if you watch Paris's testimony with Paris and Sandy, and
we got to follow up to get her back on the show, because not back on the show, but on the show, because I know she was planning on doing that.
And it's when you have someone that's been through the loss of a child because of her own body, because of having 10 amalgam fillings put in her mouth and being completely mercury poisoned. And immediately upon that happening, the health conditions that she had, but the healthiest time she had for 8 years was the 9 months she was pregnant.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here for a moment. I'm not trying to distract from that conversation, but I think this one is probably the most authentic that I've ever done. And I'm thinking about the audience at the moment. I don't know how many can be able to handle all this stuff. I'm just being truthful.
That's life, though. That's what we're about, right? People want reality TV. Guess what? If you want it real, as the wise man once said, keep it real.
Right.
As Dave Chappelle said, when keeping it real goes wrong. But if you want reality, you really have to take a chance to look inside.
Yeah.
And you really have to look around and go, okay, is the narrative and my perception of the narrative accurate? And if it is accurate, why am I seeing these things? And what are the implications? What are the impacts? What am I doing to myself? I mean, in the last 2 years, I've watched he's now 22, my son bury 5 friends from overdoses or suicides.
Holy shit.
We just had another one die last week from an OD.
How old? He's 16,
22
right?
years old. 22. Well, 22? I've got one 16, okay. 122, 125, and then our 15-year-old daughter. And
wow.
Having the conversation with our kids because of what they're listening to. And if you think the programming isn't there, if you're listening to hip hop and you're listening to rap and a lot of stuff, all they're talking about is drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs. And the hard part, and this is the passionate part I get. It's like, guys, you understand the artists that you're listening to today already died. They died from overdoses over the last couple of years. So you go, you're not understanding the narrative. And I'm blunt with it because I really don't care. And the only way that you can get through to some people is to hit them over the head hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I use language not in an abrasive manner, but to let them know, look, your friends are dead because of the choices that they made. And because of going back to the cribbing aspect, they're trying to feel better. They're trying to find something, and all they're given or what they primarily have access to is chemical based that will kill you.
Yeah.
They don't have the good. And we're doing some stuff with addiction right now. And you can watch Lori's video on our YouTube channel. And there's a couple others, but
yeah, Lori's up right now, Lori Yak, and then Yvonne Jansen. She was the one that was really impressive too. That was the Zoom call that I was on, talking about what you just mentioned about the children. Actually, I'm sorry. No, that was Paris. We talked about her children. Yvonne's children were densely autistic, who are starting to flip the script.
Yeah, and autism's such a simple fix. And this is going to sound arrogant. People are going to go, "You're an asshole." Autism is a simple fix. Autistic kids aren't.
You need to save that for Dr. Rao, though.
Stefan can go over this because he's done the research on it, and on the YouTube channel, the autism piece that we did that he put together with Dory is the best presentation surrounding autism I've ever seen. You actually need to send it to Dell. He should watch that with all his people because it will wake them up.
Yeah.
And they're the ones talking about being awake about it. It's like, no, you're missing the issue. Kids with autism or kids with Asperger's or ADD or ADHD, they're not damaged. They're blocked. They basically have a wall, and it's a glass wall, right? So it's not something that they can't see out of. They can see everything that's going on, but they can't communicate because that wall is up. And as Dr. Rao touches on in the presentation that we have, the chemical pathways are all jacked up because of the mercury, because of the glyphosate, because of the aluminum, because of some of the other metals, but those are the big three. Mm-hmm. And their serotonin pathways are screwed up. So let's look at that real quick. Your pineal gland, which is calcified by fluoride, is where melatonin is produced. Why are people taking so many melatonin supplements now? Because they can't sleep, because the freaking pineal gland doesn't work.
Yeah.
So this is where these two become so important, right? You get your clean slate, you get your zero in, now restore. But clean slate's going to clean up the mess. It decalcifies the pineal gland. You take your zero in to allow your gut, which is where 95% of neurotransmission is created. So your gut produces the neurotransmitters, which sends the frequencies and the signals of those neurotransmitters to your brain through your vagus nerve. The serotonin goes to the pineal gland, which is now freshly decalcified, which converts serotonin into melatonin. Mm-hmm. What happens? You're able to go to sleep. But here's the interesting part. And you see this in autistic kids because that pathway is screwed up. They're producing massive levels of serotonin. So naturally, you have the serotonin convert to melatonin, so you're able to go to sleep. The excess serotonin converts to DMT. So you dream. The problem is in autistic kids, their serotonin levels are spiked all the time, which is converting to DMT. So these kids aren't flighty. They're not there. The kids are high. They're tripping throughout their entire life because they're looking around going, holy shit, there's some amazing stuff going on. Imagine if you were on a mushroom trip every minute of your freaking life. That's what these kids are experiencing.
Yeah.
So once you start to remove those blockages, you remove the mercury, decalcify the pineal gland, you get some of the aluminum out from head to toes, and you start to clean that up. The wall comes down and kids start talking, going, hey, I've been here the entire time. You just couldn't communicate with me. It's like, how come we didn't have this the entire time? And sometimes it takes, and it's not immediate. It's a process. It's the same thing for systemic detoxification for all of us. This is not something that we're talking about, oh, I got vaccinated, so I'm poisoned. No, you've been poisoned since you were in the womb. And that's what we're addressing. We got to address everything from day one, whether you see day one when sperm meets egg and fireworks happen, or you see day one and your head pops out and you go, oh, I'm here. We are poisoned from day one, and our exposure compounds every breath you take. So that's what we're dealing with. What people are worried about with a vaccine now is just an extra tipping point. It's an additional exposure that creates additional weakness. You just got to clean up the mess, because you can't worry about the leaves on the floor amidst the forest, right? You have to take in the entire context of your location and where you are. Yeah, the people that can't see the forest amongst the trees.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I got a break. But a couple of different things are going to happen. Christine is coming on still to talk about the mRNA, right? We need to get that scheduled up. I'm following up with Stefan in just a bit. These, and then James Corbett. So these 5 episodes, everyone, are going to be in alignment with each other. And the decision behind that is enough's enough. We have to get the information out there. We need to be not, I don't want to say just woken up, but we have to hear this to begin the process. It has to be heard. And to go back to a thought that I didn't finish is that blessed and fortunate to know Christina and Clay, and I'm grateful for all the introductions that they've, made, and then also at the same time pushing the show to the level that it's at and that it's going. So I had a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine about better Facebook pages and all that kind of, like, the more of the business back end that I particularly don't, not that I don't care about it. I do care about it, but it's necessary. She's like, look, and she goes, what do you, I go, we need to wake up. That's all I kept saying. We need to wake up. We people need to know what's going on here. And once you see just a small section of this, then everything else just starts coming on its own, happening.
It's resonance.
Yeah.
And you can equate it to being more energetic.
Yes.
What's happening? I mean, you haven't probably talked about what's going on in your life with your legs and everything, but it comes to becoming more light, because think about it with moths, right? What are moths attracted to?
Right.
Right.
Well, let's go back real quick. So I'm going to give my testimonial, I guess, officially on this platform. I'm going to try to give it a date as best as I can. When I lived in New Jersey, my kids were really young, so that will be a good metric for me. So I would say that probably 8 to 9 years ago, I went to Penn Medicine, saw a dermatologist, because I had all these bumps on my distal extremity. So my forearms, just below my calf, and around my gut specifically, but only like kind of red dots from it. But the ones at my distal extremities, so my wrists, my forearms, and they were crusty. They were oozing stuff out. So they took a biopsy. They said it was lymphocyte papulosis. Now let me premise it with this. I've been biohacking, changing my diet, figuring stuff out, realizing what carbs really do, minimizing as much as I can, and just trying to figure it out. The one ingredient, and when I say ingredient that I've been missing, was the nootropic, clean slate. Now, in all fairness, I mean, because I haven't isolated anything, but I combined going to the ocean, swimming, getting balanced and repolarized, swallowing water, not ingesting it, but swallowing it, spitting it back out, getting my body just completely saturated in the salt, air drying, clean slate. And when I'm telling you the lifestyle, my eating habits are, if it has a label, I do not eat it. And the only 2 supplements that I take are vitamin D, because of the chemtrail. We don't know if it exists or doesn't exist. And look up chemtrail. We'll just leave it there to have fun. And then vitamin B12, because you can't get that through food. So clean vitamin D, and which, by the way, Dell said yesterday that vitamin D is the single largest precursor and determiner of people who are going to get sick with COVID. Vitamin D deficiency. I wonder why. Combined with B12, clean slate, and a very, very clean diet. Grass-fed beef. I do eat fruits and vegetables, but I usually have them after as like a little bit of a filler. So I'm not avoiding carbs, but it's just clean. I use food wash. So anything that, like the waxes, it's like we're taking the necessary steps to do that. If you saw Michelle's skin, so Sean Baker was on this show. Freaking guy he was awesome. And we just, for a few days, we just ate meat. Holy shit. I mean, it was amazing. Still is amazing. I'm always hungry.
Yep.
So that's what's been going on. So now the report is nothing's there. Nothing is there. My skin is all the dead skin's flaking off. There's no new sores. There's nothing. My forearms, I mean, look, we're on camera. My forearm, clean. Even the eczema that I had on my elbow, even the eczema that I had right here on my upper shoulder is going away. I don't know. Maybe I'm a test dummy, right?
So we all are. That's it. We're all a clinical trial of one. See, the one thing that I would look up is look up arsenic toxicity. I would just PubMed search this, arsenic toxicity and the issues. I will bet you, because of the lymphoma correlation with that you can find a significant amount of data on arsenic, because lymphoma and leukemia are primarily arsenic issues.
Really?
Primary cause, yeah. But as we know with skin issues, with all eczema, psoriasis, if you've got eczema, psoriasis, even acne, they're liver toxicity problems. Your liver is overloaded with heavy metals and specific viruses that cause the expression, through your skin of those issues. So it's not a topical concern. It's actually a liver issue. And you have to address the liver in order to clean up the skin. So all the topicals, all the stuff, even the moisturizers, the treatments, the steroids, all the stuff you want to do is actually just creating more exposure. But if you clean up your liver, which Clean Slate's really, really effective at doing, and not just the bloodstream, but actual physical tissue of the liver.
Yeah.
And actually you can watch one of the videos on YouTube with Tommy Linbo. He had non-alcoholic fatty liver disorder. And
I just pulled up arsenic and the etiology of cancer, pulled right up on PubMed.
Yeah. I mean, but look up your specific issues. Look up your diagnosis in arsenic.
Oh, well, okay.
And that's where people really can dive into it. When you talk about, okay, how do you really understand this? Just ask, but don't ask me, don't ask another individual. Do your own research. And it's not a matter of asking Google and having someone give you a blog that they wrote. It's a matter of looking at, right. I mean, there's published literature that shows you, here's the core, because there's a lot of smart people that are doing a lot of research, or there's been a lot of research done for a really long time, that it's all there. It sits right at our fingertips. I mean, to say here that the etiology of virtually all of our problems, and this is what's crucial, is back in 1974, when I started this 16 years ago, before we had the Internet of Things and before we had social media, but we had the burgeoning of Google, that I started to really get into some of the research. And because of where I grew up, and understanding that vaccinosis was a term used in veterinary medicine that I got really early. And I've taught a bunch of people this, so a bunch of the other websites for people selling detox products actually have done a good job of learning. But in 1974, the World Health Organization had published, at the time, this was before they were really, really crooked, that about 84 to 90% of all chronic degenerative diseases were caused by environmental toxicity. That was in 1974. So since then, you think that number's gone down? No, it's gone up. But what's really intriguing is you look at some of the genetic conditions, because there are some issues that I never, up until the last year and a half, that I had never really delved into, because we have always been taught that they are genetic conditions. If you PubMed some research and you look up mercury toxicity and sickle cell anemia, or mercury toxicity and Down syndrome, you'll see that the etiology is actually mercury toxicity in the womb, but the damage to the DNA and the chromosomes happens so early on in the gestational process that it creates the malformations that creates Down syndrome. So if you're a woman and you want to have healthy kids, and this is why the data shows that the older a woman gets, the closer she gets to 40 and beyond, the rates of Down syndrome increase exponentially. Why? Because their exposure to heavy metals and mercury just compounds over time. So the older you get, the more exposure you have. When you get pregnant, you dump all that stuff into the fetus. And if you don't believe me, watch the piece with Paris. She'll tell you, I had 10 amalgam fillings put in. She'd had some issues prior because of what she'd been exposed to. She gets 10 amalgam fillings in. The only time she was healthy is when she was pregnant.
Did you get your fillings removed?
No, I have not.
Yeah.
I won't do it because of a couple things. One, I have a mechanism to make sure that I can remove all of the mercury that off gases from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing it for 16 years, but the risk of improper removal of amalgam fillings is greater than the risk of keeping them in and being proactive about it.
Gotcha.
So you can do, and a lot of the practitioners, that I've worked with and I've trained over the years, some of them, claim to be gurus in detoxification now. They became practitioners and gurus, or gurus, so they could fix themselves because they were either damaged from having amalgams removed improperly, or they had them put in, or they had complications of mercury toxicity. Well, and this is the funny part for me. Do you want to actually learn from the person that got sick and had all of these problems and they're on a journey to get well? Or do you want to actually talk with the people that don't have the freaking problems?
Right.
I mean,
we gotta close. We're gonna keep going if we don't. So you get the final word as always. You know the deal. It's yours.
The Cure the Causes book is coming out here. If you're concerned about your environment that we live in currently, take care of your environment first, because if you want to be protective from everything that we fear today, that's in the media, that there's a virus, that there's EMF, that there's 5G, that there's going to be 6G, that, there's all of this stuff coming. You can't control any bit of it. You can't. The only thing you can control is how you respond and protect yourself from it. So clean yourself up. Here's what I know people want. We want to be healthy and we want to be happy. Well, healthiness starts from removing all the bad stuff. Happiness comes from dopamine and serotonin. So get some.
Close there, everybody. Good. Thank you again. Healthcare 360, Clayton Thomas, the one and only Root Brands. You've heard it enough. If you need more information on that, check out their YouTube page, the testimonials, and hit me up on Instagram or email me, and I will forward you the weekly Zoom links if you want to hear for your own eyes and ears, see and hear from the testimonies that are coming in weekly. You'll see Dr. Dorian there, you see Clay, you'll see the group, and let's build a nation. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Again, brilliance. Brilliance.
We could do this for hours.
We could. This is a good team, man. This is way easy. It's effortless.
Yeah, well, and getting Christina, if we could get Dell together with a couple of these other guys and we just do a forum, I think if everybody goes down to Florida and we come hang out with you and we put something together, kind of a.
I'm gonna work on that. Nation, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and add a comment to the discussion. If you have a moment, head on over to scottyburgess.com and check out all of our great affiliates. Also, if you want more great videos, you can check them out here and here. See you there.